And of course, if you're listening on the video part of the show, the fun of Zoom, 40 minutes time limit. That was about 35 minutes. And thankfully, Cam made his pick with Florida as the video decided to end there. So I'll go ahead and make my pick. I'll go ahead and pick, here's where we'll be contrarian. I'll go Tennessee here. Um, I know that Josh Heupel's team isn't quite where Georgia and Alabama are at yet, but they beat Alabama last year. So this could be a sign of things to come for the Tennessee Volunteers. Joe Milton, of course, the former Michigan man, playing decently at quarterback. It's a hard pick 'em, but I'm going to say Tennessee. He says an upset in Florida, so we'll go contrarian there. So no worries there. Moving to the NFL slate, with it, I pick usually games within 2.5, and if we don't have enough of those games, I don't go Sunday night, Monday night. Again, just straight up. Green Bay and Atlanta, a little bit different than a few years ago on Monday night when everybody thought Green Bay was going to destroy Atlanta, and they sort of did. So Green Bay and Atlanta.
Yeah, Green Bay came out and played a bit better than everybody expected them to, especially the Chicago Bears fan base. Didn't expect that to go the way that it went. Obviously, Justin Fields played okay, but Jordan Love played phenomenal.
Yes.
And that's why I'm going to side with Green Bay here. To me, it comes down to Jordan Love and Desmond Ridder, and if I have to pick between the two, I'm going to take Jordan Love. Based on last week, I'll go with the Packers.
Yeah, on that, I was looking at this NFC South before the season started, and I thought, good God, Saints by default, because I don't know who else is better than them. Now, Tampa Bay made a bit of a statement last week, and we'll talk about them here in a few minutes. But Atlanta, yeah, when you're talking about Jordan Love, a guy that sat behind Aaron Rodgers for two or three seasons at least, and Atlanta, Desmond Ridder, okay, took Cincinnati to a playoff, but what has he done in the NFL? Not much. And a buddy of mine and I have this provision about Atlanta when they hired Arthur Smith. Oh, the Falcons hired a new coach. All righty. Well, what's his name? Arthur Smith. Oh, and that's kind of what we're thinking of the Falcons. Jordan Love. Okay, not sure if he's going to be a 20-year quarterback like Aaron Rodgers looks to be, but something that at least get him from point A to point B. Atlanta, Desmond Ridder. Oh, so that's kind of what we're thinking about the Atlanta Falcons. And next week will be a little bit different once we talk about them against the Detroit Lions. But yeah, give me the Packers this week. It pains me to say because even without Rodgers, I still cannot stand Green Bay. In fact, it still kind of pains me that they beat Chicago this week. So Green Bay 24, Atlanta 14. Green Bay still looks like Matt LaFleur still knows what he's doing and still got it rolling. So give me Green Bay by 10. And AFC South divisional matchup in Indy and Houston.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting, right? Because Anthony Richardson showed some of the big game flash that we
Yes.
expected out of him. And for some of that game, you showed a little bit of what it means to be a rookie quarterback. So this game right here, I think what it comes down to for me is that the Colts are just more in a position to be an okay team this year than Houston is. And it's going to be fun to watch Richardson and CJ Stroud go at each other. I personally have been saying I think that CJ Stroud has the most potential to be the better quarterback of this draft class. I've always been a huge fan of CJ Stroud, but the position that the two teams are in, I got to take the Colts here.
Yeah, CJ Stroud might have a decent year, but Houston, we have a huge problem, and that is man.
And D'Amico Ryan, you know, great hire,
Oh
for
yeah.
for the Texans, I think. It's just it takes a long time to dig out of the kind of hole that Houston has been in. And I don't think that week 2 of the regular season is going to be getting out of that hole.
No, and this is showing me signs of David Carr in the 2002 season when they opened up, where it's like, who are these? Who are most of these guys? Now, of course, we know
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, of course, from Ohio State. I'm glad that Michigan beat him twice. I'm always grateful for that. But the Colts, I think the Colts have had their problems, especially when Jim Irsay is more interested in paying a whale than he is than paying Jonathan Taylor. Not sure where that went, but give me the Colts here by 7, 27-20. I think Houston does score some points. I think Nico Collins finds the end zone once. I think Anthony Richardson finds the end zone once through the air and once on the ground. But this, with good matchups come crap matchups in your pick'ems when you have that close of a spread. And this was one of those crap matchups. So, unfortunately to say. So, moving to Raymond James Stadium, Chicago and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the Bucks, you said it yourself. They made a statement last week, right? And this is kind of the Baker Mayfield experience, right? One or two games at the very beginning that are like, whoa, and then 6 weeks of okay, what's going on now? And then Baker's kind of one of those people that really seems to rely on the world coming down on him. And then, when he gets backed into a corner, he has one of these games where you're like, gosh, the flash is there. You can see it there. Can it consistently be there? Tampa goes and beats a Minnesota Vikings team that maybe a little suspect this year, like last year. It was week 1. We saw some weirder things happen in week 1, and the Vikings struggle against the Bucks. But I think the bigger key here is the way Chicago struggled against a Green Bay team that we expected to not be the Green Bay team of the past 20 years. Or even of the past 40 years, looking at how long the Packers had Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre combined. So give me the Buccaneers over the Bears. The Bears just didn't show me enough last week and the Buccaneers showed me just that little bit extra. Baker Mayfield was able to put the team on his back in situations, run it on third down for a first down, make a key throw when he needed to make it. I'm going to trust Baker Mayfield a little bit more than I trust the Bears right now.
Yeah, as far as the Bucks go, the Tom Brady effect is real because there are a lot of pieces that are no longer on that team, plus 6,000 seats that are no longer at Raymond James Stadium because Tom Brady is no longer a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. That said, Baker Mayfield is not a bad quarterback. I mean, like you had said, he had that whoa week, and so I'm making a lot of people say, Jesus, Tony. I had to make that reference out there. Jesus, Tony. That's what's making a lot of people say in the NFC South. But that said, Chicago, it's more of a Tampa. I'm still not a huge believer in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I also think very low of the Chicago Bears because I thought that Justin Fields was going to ball. I thought that the defense was starting to become the defense of old, not necessarily 85 old, but the defense of like the first and second year of Matt Nagy's coaching career. That type of defense. I did not see that at all. I saw Jordan Love ball out. I saw Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon ball out. I saw a lot different than that. So I'm going to say Tampa by 7. Let's go 17-10. I think that there's not going to be a lot of points scored in this game, but I think Baker is going to throw for about 300 yards, and Mike Evans will find the end zone once. As far as Chicago goes, I think Justin Fields finds the end zone once with his legs. Moving to Monday night, Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
All right. The Cleveland Browns had the hype for the last, several years and didn't live up to it. And now they don't necessarily have the hype and they're living up to it a little bit, I think. Pittsburgh, take that what happened last week with a grain of salt. They played against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not a believer in the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, the way that, a lot of people are. And Pittsburgh has such a history of being consistently good, consistently over above 500 team. But they got blown out. They looked like they didn't know what was going on against the San Francisco 49ers. And that's because even if you're playing against a team like San Francisco, that's a hard it's a hard pill to swallow to be down that big, that fast in week 1. Week 1 is the week that every team should just be so hyped to play and ready to play and engaged to play. You've been thinking about this one team for, a longer period of time than you get to throughout the rest of the regular season, and you lay an egg the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers laid an egg. Cleveland, on the other hand, beat Joe Burrow. The conditions of the game were just atrocious. I think a lot of people looked at Joe Burrow's week and went, what happened to Joe Burrow? But they just checked the box score, they just checked the fantasy points, they didn't watch a highlight, and they didn't go, oh, the the Bengals were trying to put a different glove on Joe Burrow's hand like every possession because he couldn't physically get a grip on the ball, to throw it. And the Browns were able to overcome that environment much better than the Bengals were. And so, because of Cleveland's ability to kind of move with the conditions a little bit, they got Deshaun Watson running the ball. As much as I haven't been a believer in the Browns in the past, I'm a believer in the Browns this week. Give me Cleveland over Pittsburgh.
This one's a tough game to pick because one, you have a divisional rivalry, of course, with Cleveland and Pittsburgh, but also like you had said, the conditions really helped Cleveland in that spot because Joe Burrow couldn't hold on to a football literally because of the rain. In fact, I played a couple of tournaments here locally where I'm at where it was raining so hard, and because it was one of those not necessarily charity, but one of those tournaments where you've got so many guys out here, it's going to be too tough to reschedule. They just had you play in the rain, and it's like, I can't even get a grip on my driver. Come on. That's kind of what's going on here with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals there in that first week. But moving back to Cleveland, they finally have stability in some sort at quarterback with Deshaun Watson. Of course, we're going to save the talk of what happened between the lines for another day, but Deshaun Watson at quarterback, their running game is still there. And Pittsburgh just got blown out. I mean, San Francisco is a team that, and I will say it now that even if Detroit were to have made the playoffs last year, I think they would have suffered a very similar fate that Seattle did because they would have had to play San Francisco. And I think San Francisco was on a mission. If Brock Purdy was not hurt against the Eagles, I think San Francisco makes and possibly wins a Super Bowl. They were that dominant. They just lost their quarterback, and that screwed them over. As far as this game goes, give me Cleveland by a field goal. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I think Pittsburgh is a little bit better than what week one says. I still think Pittsburgh finishes 9-8 because Mike Tomlin, but I think Cleveland may very well be the real deal. And this is where they showcase that on Monday night.
Has there been a harder week 2 pick 'em ever? This is one of the most bizarre week 1s that I've ever seen, because after the Jets Bills game, I had so many people texting me, what's wrong with Josh Allen? What's going on with Josh Allen? And I said, as hard of a game as it was for Josh Allen, you know what else we saw this week? We saw the Chiefs lose at home. We saw the Vikings lose in week 1. We saw the Giants get absolutely destroyed by the Dallas Cowboys. Like, we all turned that game off in the first quarter. We saw a Seahawks team that was supposed to have one of the best offenses in the game look bland and stale. We saw some really bizarre things happen in week 1. So hold the overreactions. Let's see a week 2.
Exactly. Good deal. So, and now the bonus game. I picked the highest spread. Usually it's either the number 1 team or the highest spread team if it's not Michigan, which I've said it before. Michigan is one of the toughest teams to bet against the spread. But anyway, it's kind of fitting that this ends up the game that because the team you're covering, and that is the Oregon Ducks facing the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. The spread is 37.5. When I texted it out, will Oregon cover 37.5 against Hawaii?
This is a fun conversation. There's a couple of reporters in our newsroom last week. I think the spread for Stanford USC was USC favored by 40, something like that. And I was telling him, my buddy was thinking about betting on the spread, and I was, don't bet on a 40-point spread, no matter the team. That's crazy, And so he went against my word, and he won money because Stanford won the game like 55 to something, or I think they had 50 points at halftime. But I do stand my ground. It's hard to bet any team in any conditions. To bet a spread of 40 plus is just crazy. Here's what's interesting about the Ducks and the Rainbow Warriors is that excuse me, Oregon scored 81 points against Portland State at Autzen Stadium a couple weeks ago.
I'm
Went on the road
surprised
to
that the
Texas Tech.
Ducks. I'm surprised that the Ducks' arms are still intact. How many push-ups?
Yeah, 546 that day. They go on the road. They struggle a little bit with Texas Tech in a really harsh environment and get a win at the end. Now here's the reason why I don't necessarily think the spread is the place to go here, and maybe the over instead is. Oregon, the reason their downfall in the last couple of years has been their secondary, and that was a little bit evident last week. They had some costly pass interference penalties and struggled to hold Tyler Shuck's mobility in check. And a former Oregon quarterback, by the way, in Tyler Shuck. And the Rainbow Warriors are a very pass-heavy team. I think that their leading rusher has 11 carries through 2 weeks. They throw the ball with Braden Shager a lot. I think I've got his stats up right here. In 2023, he is 80 of 128 for 972 yards, 10 touchdowns. And he's also thrown 5 interceptions. So maybe that plays in the Ducks' favor a little bit. Long story short, they've thrown the ball 128 times in 2 weeks.
64 a game. Yeah.
They throw the ball. And so when you look at a secondary like Oregon's that's still trying to settle down and gel a little bit and has been a problematic position group for the Ducks in the last couple of years, the Rainbow Warriors, I think, for at least a half, have the potential to move the ball down the field, which could create some problems for the Ducks, creating separation there, at least early in the game. So I would veer away from the spread here and maybe go with the overscoring total instead.
I got to pick up my arm because of how many times the Hawaii has thrown the ball 128 times. I mean,
yes, the Rainbow Warriors are an air raid at its very definition. You look up air raid in the dictionary and you see the Hawaii Rainbow Warrior logo.
No kidding. I mean, 128 times in 2 games. Thankfully, my arm is glued back on, so I'm all right. But yeah, that's Matthew Stafford, Detroit Lions, Jim Schwartz type stats, where they were an air raid team that Stafford even threw some timely picks. So yeah. 37.5 is tough to cover. I think last week I had Georgia and Ball State, and I did not pick Georgia to cover, and I believe that hit. So I am going to go ahead and say Hawaii plus 37.5. I still think it's going to be like 55-17 or something like that, to where it'll be real respectable. That's
oh yeah, will be a blowout. Will be a blowout for sure.
Yeah,
I just don't know. I just don't know that I trust
so.
Oregon to get away. Yeah, that early.
Right. So thinking about a 55-17 makes 38 on the nose, so you'd lose by the hook if you went Oregon minus 37.5. So give me Hawaii on the plus 37.5 on that. So all righty. With all that said, the famed final question of the show. Anything else that you may have to add to this wonderful Tom Green podcast for this week?
No, man, just thanks for having me. Appreciate the chance to talk to you guys about some football over there. And remember, when you're following me on social media, Cam Derby TV, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, shameless plug, I will not say a negative thing about the Lions this year because I am a man of my word. The Seahawks fans owe the Lions fans that much. So consider the Seahawks fans and the Lions fans shaking hands this year.
There you go. So we hope he stands true to his word. He is Cameron Derby, and this is in the Lions-Seahawks preview of the Tom Green podcast for this week.